falling back in love with yourself, because you can't love others if you don't love yourself. Because if you find yourself avoiding tough conversations, beating yourself up when you don't speak up in meetings, or when you speak up too much and end up rambling, or getting stuck in your content creation on social media, basically, if you have been stuck in a certain area of your life for a while now and you cannot figure out why, there's a high chance that you need to fall back in love with yourself. Now you may think, Ray, what do you mean? How does whatever you've just said have to do with loving myself, right? Plus, I do love myself. If let's say you're thinking this way, you're like, I love myself, duh. Listen, love is not a destination, it's a commitment. So yes, you do love yourself, but are you consistently showing acts of love to yourself, including taking the time to understand why you've been avoiding the tough conversations that you need to have? Are you holding space for yourself to feel those feelings of frustration, disappointment, or even shame when you don't perform according to your expectations? And are you learning how to observe what creates flow for you when you create content on social media, instead of following the advice of others like sit down, take 1 hour to batch your content for the entire week, and then you sit yourself down, you try to batch the content, it doesn't work, and then you feel frustrated using, creating content on social media? Are you actually committed to understanding how you function so that you can create content from a place of ease and flow? You see, whatever that you've been feeling stuck in your professional life about, or even your health, your goals, or if you're just dealing with the negative thought of feeling like you're not doing enough, the antidote to all of this is not finding another solution. It is love. Because every human being is different. One solution won't work the same for everyone. The only way to know what works for you is when you love yourself enough to understand yourself. So here's what I really mean by falling back in love with yourself, okay? You know how when you start dating someone for the first time, and the first few weeks or even the first few months, you'll think about the person a lot, you'll check in with them, good morning, you'll say good night before you go to sleep. Oh man, I'm saying this and I'm thinking of those times. Okay, anyways. So you know how the start of the relationship is very lovey-dovey, when you travel, you see a cute souvenir that reminds you of them, then you buy it back home to surprise them. You notice the little changes in their mood and ask them what's wrong. Then as the relationship grows older, you don't do these things as much anymore. We got used to the person. They've become part of our life. They can come back from work and it will just go, hello, without looking up from our laptop. Or instead of asking nicely, or, well, not really, but yeah, instead of asking nicely, we will say, hey, can you help pick up some bread later in the shop? Right? It becomes very, I mean, you get my point, right? You can see the obvious difference between when you first start dating someone and then when you have dated them for a while already. Because here's the thing, as humans, we love the excitement of new things. So we tend to have more mind space when we're in a new relationship. And as our relationship grows older, it takes extra effort to consciously remind ourselves to show these acts of love. This is the same case of the relationship we have with ourselves. Look, we've been with ourselves for decades, right? Which means the amount of time that you're on this earth. So we see ourselves every single day. We see ourselves in the mirror. Over time, instead of speaking to ourselves lovingly, we start ordering ourselves around in our mind, right? We start thinking, okay, I have to do this. Okay, I have to do that. And like bossing ourselves around. Instead of understanding why we're frustrated, we fiercely question ourselves over here. Why can't you get this right? I told you so many times, why you forget? I should have done this. You shouldn't have procrastinated. We start speaking to ourselves with such, unkindness, if that's a word, right? Instead of patiently understanding how our mind, our body, our soul works, we do whatever it takes to force ourselves to be more productive. Look, you can only love someone when you've learned how to love yourself. And maybe at this point in time, you might be reflecting, right? How have you been speaking to the people in your life? And the way that you've been speaking to them, the tone in which you've been speaking to them, is it a reflection of how you have been speaking to yourself over here? Because the way you speak to yourself will get reflected to the way you speak to others. One way to fall back in love with yourself is to schedule non-negotiable time with yourself, whether it's a date once a week, or even if it's just a few hours a week. Take time to appreciate yourself, to understand yourself, to just have a conversation with yourself. The stronger the relationship you have with yourself, the better you'll be in your work, in your relationships. So that's why part 1 is to fall back in love with yourself.